Sometimes new watch releases take some time to get you really interested to the point where you want to pull the trigger. Other times a new release can really blow you away right from the start. That was exactly the case for me and Nele when we first saw the Baltic MR01. Let me show you what made me immediately want to own this watch, and if you haven't purchased it, well, maybe you should have. Hi guys, and welcome back to the Watch Scientist channel. It's Chris, and thank you so much for everyone that has joined our channel by subscribing over the past few months, and I hope you really enjoy these videos. I immediately saw that this was a very unusual watch to release, especially from a micro brand. To release a watch like this during these times, I mean, this is a 36mm classically designed dress watch, and this in a micro brand environment that heavily fixates on dive watches, GMT divers and chronographs. But maybe this release isn't that unusual, because we see more and more smaller sized watches, and we see a growing interest in vintage watches in this classic design. And maybe Baltic also senses this shift in interest and just banged it out of the park with this 600 euro beauty. So there were 5 main things that made me immediately want to own this watch. First of all, the traditional 36mm sized case. And listen, 36 is not a small size, not even today. Men have been wearing 36mm timepieces for years and decades, and I think so can you. But for me, with my medium-sized wrist, 17 centimeters, I think 36mm is just incredibly comfortable, and it looks classy and understated. The second thing is the dial. I really love this kind of frosted, chiseled look. Of course, this is not a hand chiseled dial, this is a stamped dial, so every dial would be exactly the same, but it pays homage to this classic type of finishing that we see often on movements or on dials in traditional watchmaking. And the both of us, so me and Nele, went for the salmon color dial. The salmon color is a very sought after color right now, which I can partly understand. We don't see it very often, and it's a very special, very warm and romantic color. And the third thing is the movement. And just like the smaller size and the chiseled look of the dial, this is something we don't see often at all, especially in this kind of price range. This watch houses a micro rotor movement. Micro rotors are my favorite kind of movements, and you don't find them at all, especially in newer watches under 10,000 euros. What I also love here is how much space the movement takes up on the case back. We see it way too often, even in very expensive watches, that the movements just don't fill out the case, and I think it's a shame, especially if you have an open case back. And of course, the reason why we have a micro rotor movement in this watch is that this is a Chinese micro rotor movement. This is a Hangzhou caliber 5000A, and I think it's beautiful that they went for the 5000A without the date, which makes the style just much more classy and legible. And I'm very happy that Baltic is just transparent that these movements are from China. I mean, what other way would they be able to put a micro rotor movement in a 600 euro watch? I mean, would I prefer a Swiss-made micro rotor movement? Of course. But am I ready to pay 10,000 euros for this watch? Of course not, so this is a great compromise in my opinion. And the use of this micro rotor makes this watch incredibly thin. Of course, this movement is not going to be incredibly accurate. I think we can expect an accuracy of around plus minus 15 to 20 seconds a day, comparable to what we see in Seiko watches. And I mean, everybody loves Seiko, so this shouldn't be a problem, right? The fourth thing is the Breguet numerals on the dial. I've always loved this font style, created by one of the founding fathers, let's say, of watchmaking, Abraham Louis Breguet. Today they're almost exclusively used in very high-end, high horology watches, which I think is a shame because it's not necessarily more expensive. I mean, it's just a font, right? And I love to see them in a watch like this, and especially I love that they are not printed on the dial but applied. I think applied numerals or indices always gives more interest to the dial and more depth to the design. And with the off-center seconds at 7 o'clock, I think this dial is very beautifully balanced yet interesting to look at. And the fifth part is the price tag of a little over 600 euros. I mean, just look for yourself what kind of watches you can get new for this kind of price, and especially in the dress watch category. I think what we see today as dress watches is just simply kind of a boring design. I mean, yes, dress watches are supposed to be understated and simple, but I don't think that means that they have to be boring. I mean, just look at Patek Philippe Calatrava watches. They are very simple, yet there's enough detail to make them beautifully interesting to look at. I mean, that's the challenge of making a great dress watch. Keep it simple, yet make it interesting. And I think Baltic has really succeeded in doing this. Yeah, and all these things just put together in one watch just make for a great value proposition, in my opinion. I mean, like I said at the beginning, I saw this watch and I immediately wanted to own it. One point that Adrian from Bark and Jack has pointed out is that maybe these watches are kind of copying what actually high horology or traditional watchmaking used to do for years. But you know, first off, Baltic is not trying to fool us here. They don't add something like a dial side balance wheel to make it seem like a tourbillon or something like that. These are real Breguet numerals, nothing very expensive. This is a real micro-rotor movement, a Chinese one, but they are very transparent about that. And this dial looks like a chiseled dial. Should you expect a hand-chiseled dial for 600 euros? Of course not. I mean, no one is expecting hand finish in a 600 euro watch. The way I see it, Baltic is not trying to fool us. What they are doing is bringing classical design to the masses, and that for a really, really affordable price. What Baltic is doing with this watch is maybe set a new trend, pave the road for more traditionally designed watches, especially in the lower price ranges. And this is especially cool for the micro brand space, which is so heavily dominated by dive watches, chronographs and GMT watches. If you're looking for a dress watch and maybe because of that you also enjoy classical design, then I think this watch is an amazing dress watch and one of the best looking dress watches for this price you can get. And like I said, me and Nele immediately bought this watch right at the start where they opened for pre-orders. I quite spontaneously decided to opt for the steel Beads of Rice bracelet. I've gotten quite a few watches on straps and I really love having a watch on a bracelet. I think it makes it more of a full product, if you know what I mean. And I decided against the leather strap because I think in a watch like this, of course, Baltic had to cut corners and find as many things to save money on, which is obvious for a watch that is more than 600 euros. And normally in these watches, they don't put that much money in the leather strap. In any case, I can always get a leather strap afterwards. And I will be receiving my MR01 in July. And of course, as soon as I get it, I will do an unboxing video and a first impressions of the watch. I'm really looking forward to seeing it in person. So guys, that's it for this video. I think this is a very interesting watch to see. And I love to see so much interest in a classically themed watch, especially in a dress watch format. If you stuck around until now, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, then leave a like down below, subscribe if you enjoy this kind of content, and yeah, that's it. Thank you guys. Ciao.